think first of all, the family of faith certainly has helped us. It's largely oriented towards the parishes, especially when you reach the goal, you go over, it goes largely towards the parish. And it's simply a financial thing, but we have to, many of the things in our pastoral plan really don't require money at all. It's focusing on these issues. And one of the key points of our pastoral plan is to support the family, especially young people. Now, how do we do that? This, I think, first must be done. We could have we have various offices like, family counseling offices and things at the central level of the office on Yonge Street. But I think if we add another couple of offices in our bureaucracy, I'm not sure that's the way to go. I think what we do need to do is to be sure that in the parishes that we have help in this way, that have a way of supporting families through movements such as this are much more effective than like a command from the central kind of office. If there's something we can do to coordinate things, to help people, to spread the word, to help that, I think that is very good. We also do have when families are in difficulty, we have pastoral counseling, family counseling services, which we can provide at a kind of a central office. So that we can do by setting up, hiring someone, doing that kind of a thing, which we use the family of faith money to do. But I think the main thing has to be, in terms of helping people, strengthening them, encourage them, it needs to be at the parish level. And that's one of the reasons why in the Family of Faith campaign, even the financial part, which is just a financial thing, the money is focused largely on the parish rather than on the central, like the headquarters where I have my office. So we need to do that. In terms of organizing people's understanding or support of things, as for example, dealing with some of the issues the Father was mentioning. That's where we can do that more effectively at the central office, like teachings about the family, things of that nature, that we can do. And we're trying to develop like a ability to have people across the whole diocese connected to one another in communication and so on, so we could have speakers come in who could help them, give them understanding and assistance in their work. That kind of infrastructure we're setting up and using the Family of Faith money to do that. So that is one thing we can do at a kind of a more broader kind of a level. But I think that the main thing needs to be helping at the more local level. One of the ways which we're trying to do it, though, is to help the priests to be more effective and to help them in their leadership, to be there by the side of families, couples. We have a thing called Good Leaders, Good Shepherds, which has been very successful, and we're about our 4th group right now, where priests are given assistance in the ability to do individual counseling, to do work with groups, to lead larger groups. That kind of, by training the priests, I think will help the lay people. Also, we're trying to work in ways of helping priests to preach more effectively, and that would also be a way of helping individuals. At the broader level, where we're not talking about individual movements, which is really where the rubber hits the road, is in what you're doing really in this immediate living. But in the level of, for example, dealing with the government on a lot of these different issues, this is where what largely happens behind the scenes, certainly in the euthanasia thing. I'm going around from cabinet minister to cabinet minister trying to encourage them to protect conscience and to deal with these things. It's a struggle, but you have to work at it constantly, and I think we're beginning to have some progress in that. But we're dealing with a fundamental distorted vision in society. And that's why in our pastoral plan, the first piece is vibrant parishes. Well, the first piece is reach out to the scattered, care for the gathered. And get the gathered so cared for that they reach out to the scattered, which is sort of what you're describing, how the movement spreads. Care for the people, like they say, put them in an airplane thing, put the oxygen on first and then help the person beside you. So that the oxygen thing first is care for the gathered, and help the person beside, that's reach out to the scattered, that's reach out to the ones who need it. So we're trying to do it that way, but we have vibrant parishes, people living their vocations of different types, priesthood, religious life, lay vocation, help the needy, practical way, that's share life and things like that, and then evangelize the culture, because we're kind of trying to to say put Band-Aids on things here when there's the problem is further down. And that's where we have our greatest issue. And that's, I think, where we can make a great benefit by helping within the family to help the kids to appreciate some of these problems we're facing. But at the broader level, we have a society which is oriented towards the individual and not towards, it's this autonomy thing. So what I'm trying to do there is to really stress things to, for example, chaplaincy at Ryerson, where the popular culture is presented, to try to help that, try to get into the mainstream of the culture, get a wholesome, family-oriented reality rather than some of the stuff which, people, it's just like swimming in a sea of garbage. You get this, we have to purify that, or we're always going to be running behind ourselves trying to fix the problems. So we've got to kind of get to the root of the issue. And we're trying to do that in ways, for example, dealing with popular culture and things. Well, that's a long-term thing, though. The more immediate issues are more pressing. So those are some of the things we're trying to do. But I think the key thing has to be at the parish level. The closer to the ground, the more it is. And that's why training the priests, getting better preaching, and then making available, like helping people in other parishes know about good things that are happening in this or that parish. That, I think, can help. We also had every year we have a seminar for the priests, and we had one on issues of sexuality. And one thing we had also this year was reaching out to help our brothers and sisters who are struggling with same-sex live a life of chastity and in harmony with the gospel. And the name of the movement is Courage. And they certainly need courage, because they often get rejected by people who think they're Christian, and they're rejected by people who are living this immoral life. So they're very courageous. So we try to help them as well, various groups like that. On the issue Father mentioned, I just like to mention that is a shocking reality. And you think here you would think in a Polish religious setting, you would think, but it's everywhere. We're going to get this. That's what I don't know whether the Supreme Court judges were thinking of that. I don't know what they were thinking. I read through the Carter decision, and it was two very extreme cases which touched the heart and lead to, it was a legal saying, hard cases make bad law, and that's what we're dealing with. So we're dealing with the reality. I highly recommend, and I've recommended to the priests, a policy that's come out about 37 pages on these very issues from the Alberta Bishops' Conference, in which lots of various people have had an input into it, dealing with the whole issue of what do you do, apart from trying to talk to the government to get them to give freedom of conscience to doctors and things like that. What do you actually do when you have a situation if someone comes up to you and they're planning this? And if it's beyond trying to help people have a deeper understanding of life, what do you actually have someone right there who's actually asking for this? And there's a whole set of suggestions, and it's put out by the Alberta bishops, and it's very, very good. And I just recommend it's a bit complex. It's that long because there are these different things. The basic gist of it is that up to the point at which a person makes the appointment to have themselves killed, up to that point, we try everything we can in terms of the sacraments, in terms of counseling, and whatever we can to encourage them to turn to a different path. They could receive communion, they could receive absolution if they are not yet committed to this pathway. We do all that we can, pray by the grace of the sacraments, and by our prayers and everything, they will turn aside. Once a person has made the commitment and are on their way towards this, then we just accompany them in prayer, but we urge them and pray for them. And certainly you mentioned the family supporting this. I mean, this is just astonishing. I don't know this story, I just heard about it the first time when you just mentioned it, so I don't know I'm not referring to the local case because I don't know it. But one of the things which people don't think enough about is the pressure put upon people to hurry up and be gone. The pressure. It may not be physical, may not be mentioned, may not even be spoken, but if the family can say, you're using up our inheritance, let's go, time to go. And the person who is sick could also feel that very strongly. Once that's an option, that they could feel that pressure, even if it wasn't even spoken directly. That's a very real concern we have. That's why there are various little rules in the laws to try to eliminate that possibility, but it's there, very real. So it's the fact that people could have a view that this is an acceptable path is just so very sad. And I think in the immediate thing, what can you do? It's happened, there we are. But I think we have to build a civilization of love where people don't think of this horrible option, which really is a rejection of the love of God and this whole concept that our dignity. God is, we don't own our life. God has entrusted us with our life. And we don't own the lives of other people either. And so we need to find a way of trying to reach out to these people. The fact that a Catholic family would encourage, cheer on or encourage their parent to do this is a truly sad and tragic thing. And I'm afraid, as you mentioned, we're going to see more of it. Institutions, so they don't be forced into this kind of a thing as well. It's a sad commentary on our society. That's why the fourth theme of our pastoral plan for Archdiocese, apart from the obvious ones of vital parishes, vocations, and caring for the needy, is evangelize the culture. We do that by our communications, we do that by preaching, but we also do it by the example of families that are living the alternate way, where this is not the path. That, the example of families is itself an evangelization of the culture. We also need apologetics, we need communication, but that itself, the very existence of this movement and others, is a way of trying to provide an alternative and evangelize the culture. It's getting worse and it will get worse. We have to really communicate. And it can't, I do what I can by speaking about it, by talking to the politicians, and at the recent Cardinals' dinner, I don't even mention the word euthanasia, but I spent half of my talk talking about euthanasia and about the fact that the dignity of the human person does not depend on their propriety. But think of Pope John Paul, when he was very vigorous in his youth, and then as he got older, you could see he was not able to do all kinds of things, couldn't even speak at the end. But that doesn't mean he had less dignity at the end. Because if we make people's dignity dependent upon their ability to perform, then what a horrible world we're in. Because not only people who are approaching death, you think of Pope John Paul's final months and all that, but also what about people who are quite young and who for some reason don't match whatever people think is the standard of dignity. They don't, whatever. They're not able to do whatever somebody says that they should be able to do. What about people who are poor, people who are the homeless? They don't match the standard of what makes up her life worth living, and therefore, away with them. This is very serious. It's beyond euthanasia. Euthanasia is just the tip of the spear. It's beyond euthanasia. It's a whole concept of the dignity of the human person. The people's dignity depends upon their independence, their autonomy, and not upon the fact that what I am in the sight of God, that I am indeed, no more, no less. Each one of us must be treated with reverence as a person, not a thing, as a who, not a what. We've got in every way to try to get that message across, first of all by our example, but also by more public ways. And that's the only way really to respond to the euthanasia thing and to many other things as well, which are similar. I don't think getting the Supreme Court to reverse its decisions, no, we're not going to do that in a short time. Especially since the popular people say, oh yeah, that looks good to me, They haven't thought it through. They just say, oh, do you want to have a, I remember once I was being interviewed by this TV, they're very friendly. It's funny when the cameras are off. Oh, hello, Your Eminence, how are you? Very nice. And then once the camera's on, why do you want people to writhe in pain and die in misery? I said, what? Usually I try to be pretty cool. I think I was. I said, well, that's a loaded question. They totally distort what's really going on.